A sour smell from the cold cuts rose at 6:03 p.m. right in the middle of the $1 million Etheria Horizon Lounge. Manager Cassandra Montgomery, wearing a tight uniform, used a racial trick to push Franklin and his son into a corner to hide her food theft. She did not know the black man in worn jeans, holding his sleeping 7-year-old child, was the corporation's supreme chairman. Franklin came here only to test the real service quality that customers receive without any power to protect them. Facing this insult, he chose to start a journey to expose the corruption ring inside this branch. Facing bribed witnesses and airport security coming to arrest him, how will the hidden chairman turn the tables? Because that smell hit him first, Franklin Reeves knew something was wrong before he saw anything. He stood near the cheese table, with his son, Micah, asleep against his shoulder. The boy's small fingers gripped a worn blue notebook. It had belonged to Franklin's late wife. He carried it everywhere now, tucked inside his jacket pocket, close to his heart. Franklin wore faded jeans and a plain gray shirt. No watch, no rings, nothing that said money. That was the point. He had built Etheria Airlines from a single cargo plane 22 years ago. Back then, he loaded boxes himself at midnight, sleeping in his truck between shifts. Nobody had opened doors for him. He had learned to open them himself, one flight at a time. Tonight, he wanted to see his own VIP lounge the way a regular traveler would see it. No name tags, no warnings sent ahead, just a tired dad and a sleeping son waiting for a delayed flight. His late wife, Renee, used to say the truest test of a company was how it treated people who could not fight back. Franklin never forgot that. It was the whole reason he still walked his own lounges in disguise, years after he no longer needed to. The lounge glowed with soft gold light. Waiters in black vests moved between marble tables. Somewhere, a low jazz song played under the hum of the air conditioning. Ice clinked softly in a nearby glass. A cartwheel squeaked once, then went quiet. Small sounds, easy to miss, but Franklin noticed all of them. He had spent years training himself to notice small things. A cracked tile, a tired employee, a guest ignored at the front desk. Details told the real story, long before any report ever reached his desk. But under the perfume of fresh flowers, that sour smell kept rising. Franklin looked at the tray of cold cuts near the window. The turkey had a gray edge. The cheese looked sweaty under the lights. He picked up a small napkin and dabbed his son's forehead. Micah stirred but did not wake. A woman's heels clicked fast across the marble floor. "Sir, this section is reserved." Franklin turned. The manager's name tag read Cassandra Montgomery. Her blazer was pressed sharp. Her lipstick was a deep, confident red. She looked at Franklin's jeans, then at his son, then back at his jeans. "I have a lounge pass," Franklin said quietly. He held up his phone screen. Cassandra barely glanced at it. "This lounge is for premium members only. I need you to move to the general seating area. Now." Her voice had a practiced sweetness. Underneath it sat something colder. Franklin felt his jaw tighten, just slightly. He kept his voice low, so he would not wake Micah. "My pass is valid. I checked in an hour ago. Sir, I don't have time to argue passes with every walk-in." Cassandra's eyes flicked toward two men near the bar, both in expensive suits. She smiled at them, then turned back to Franklin with a flatter face. "People like you tend to wander in here by mistake." The words landed heavy in the quiet room. A young waiter nearby froze mid-step, holding a tray of empty glasses. He did not move. Franklin did not raise his voice. He shifted Micah gently onto his other shoulder. "People like me? You know what I mean?" Cassandra's smile did not reach her eyes. "This is a $5,000 a year membership space. We keep a certain standard here." She reached out and gripped Franklin's elbow, steering him toward the corner exit near the kitchen doors. Micah's eyes fluttered open. He looked up at his father, confused, then at the woman pulling his arm. "Daddy, why is she pushing us?" The question hung in the air like a hell breath. Franklin's chest tightened, not from fear, from something older and heavier, a feeling he had felt many times, before he ever owned an airline. He gently pulled his arm free. "We are not moving. Please explain what policy says a valid pass holder must sit by the kitchen." Cassandra's face flushed. "It's not a policy. It's common sense for everyone's comfort." Behind her, through a half-open kitchen door, Franklin caught a flash of movement. A worker in a hairnet was sliding trays of spoiled meat back on his serving platters. Another worker was scraping mold off a wheel of cheese with a plastic knife. The smell grew stronger for a second, sharp and sour, then faded as the door swung shut. A metal cart rattled somewhere deeper in the kitchen. Someone dropped a pan, and a voice hissed for quiet. Franklin's eyes narrowed just a fraction. He said nothing yet, because right then he understood two things at once. First, this woman was hiding something far bigger than rudeness. Second, whatever it was, she needed him gone before he could see it clearly. The forced walk toward the corner was not about comfort at all. It was about a secret worth protecting, no matter who got hurt in the process. At 6:11 p.m., Cassandra planted herself in front of Franklin like a wall. "This is your last warning," she said. "Take your son and sit in general boarding, or I will call security." Micah pressed his face into his father's shoulder. His small body had gone stiff. Franklin kept his tone even. "Go ahead. Call them." Something flickered across Cassandra's face. Surprise, maybe. She had expected him to fold. She lifted her radio anyway. "Security to the VIP lounge, west entrance. Possible unauthorized access." 2 guards arrived within 90 seconds. Big men, dark polos, earpieces blinking. They looked at Franklin, then at Cassandra, waiting for instructions. "This man is refusing to leave premium seating," Cassandra said, arms crossed. "He's disturbing paying members." One guard, named Reyes, glanced at Franklin's phone screen, still open to the lounge pass. "Ma'am, his passcode checks out. It's a valid gold tier entry." "I don't care what the app says," Cassandra snapped. "I run this lounge. I decide who stays." Franklin studied her closely now. Her hands trembled slightly at her sides. Small movements, easy to miss, unless you were watching for them. She was not just rude. She was scared. He thought of the spoiled meat in the kitchen. He thought of her rush to push him toward that exact corner. "Ma'am," Reyes said carefully, "we can't remove a guest with a valid pass without cause." Cassandra's eyes darted toward the kitchen door, then back. "Fine. Then I want a witness statement, in case this escalates." She waved over a nearby guest, a man in a navy suit sipping champagne near the window. "Mr. Dalton, you saw this man causing a disturbance, correct?" The man, Gerald Dalton, glanced at Franklin, then at Cassandra. Something passed between them, quick and quiet. A nod that came too fast. "Yeah," Dalton said. "Loud, aggressive, scared my kids." There were no children anywhere near Dalton's table. Franklin filed that detail away without a word. At 6:19 p.m., a low, buzzing sound cut through the room. Franklin's phone lit up in his hand. He looked down at the screen, careful to keep his face calm. It was a message from his chief financial officer, 3 time zones away. Branch inventory reports for Etheria Horizon Lounge show a $9,271 gap this quarter. Food costs down. Waste logs missing 3 weeks straight. Franklin's pulse ticked up just slightly. He slid the phone back into his pocket. Micah tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, can we go home? I don't like it here." "Soon, buddy," Franklin whispered. "I promise." He looked past Cassandra's shoulder at the kitchen door one more time. A worker was wheeling out a fresh tray of shrimp, the ice around it already melting into a thin gray puddle. Somewhere behind that door sat the real story of this lounge, and Cassandra Montgomery was standing directly in front of it, arms crossed, daring him to push past her. He almost did. Instead, Franklin reached into his jacket and pulled out his real access card, the one that never left his side. At 6:24 p.m., the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Franklin held up a slim black card. No logo. No name printed on the front. Just a chip and a small embossed symbol shaped like a compass. Since my lounge pass isn't enough, he said quietly, maybe this will help. Reyes leaned in to look. His face went pale in less than 2 seconds. Sir, is that a corporate executive override card? It is, Franklin said. Issued by Etheria Airlines headquarters. Level 1 clearance. Cassandra let out a short laugh, sharp and nervous. That's cute. Anyone can order a fake card online. I've seen a dozen this year. Have you? Franklin said. Not a question. A quiet observation. He turned the card over. On the back, small letters read, property of the office of the chairman. Void if separated from primary badge holder. Cassandra's laugh faded fast. Her eyes locked on those words, reading them twice. That doesn't prove anything, she said, though her voice had lost its edge. Cards get stolen. Cards get copied. They do, Franklin agreed calmly, which is why headquarters can verify it instantly. He tapped the card against the reader mounted by the hostess podium, a device most staff barely noticed anymore. The small screen blinked green. Then a name appeared in bold letters across the display. Franklin Reeves, Chairman, Etheria Airlines Group. The jazz music kept playing softly. Nobody in the lounge moved. A cocktail glass slipped from a nearby waiter's hand and shattered on the marble floor. The sound cracked through the silence like a small gunshot. Cassandra stared at the screen, her mouth slightly open. Her manicured hand rose halfway to her chest, then dropped again. That has to be a system error, she whispered. Reyes stepped back, his radio hanging forgotten at his side. Sir, I am so sorry. We had no idea. Franklin's face stayed calm, almost gentle. He was not smiling. He was not gloating either. He simply looked tired, the way a man looks after confirming something he already suspected. I didn't come here to be recognized, he said. I came here to see how you treat guests who look like they don't matter. Micah, now fully awake, stared up at the glowing screen, then at his father. Daddy, you're the boss of the whole airline? I am, buddy. Micah's small hand tightened around the worn blue notebook in his pocket. He did not say another word. He just leaned closer into his father's side. Cassandra's confidence cracked wide open, but not into an apology. Not yet. Instead, something colder settled over her face. The look of someone calculating how much trouble she was truly in. At 6:31 p.m., Cassandra tried one last move. Mr. Reeves, she said, forcing a smile back on her face. This is clearly a big misunderstanding. Let me comp your evening. Champagne, a private table, anything you need. I don't want champagne, Franklin said. I want to know why spoiled meat is sitting on a 5-star buffet. Cassandra's smile froze. I have no idea what you're referring to. The gray turkey on the cold-cut tray. The moldy cheese someone scraped clean in your kitchen 10 minutes ago. Franklin kept his voice level. I saw it myself. Her jaw tightened. A thin vein pulsed once at her temple. You must be mistaken, she said. Our kitchen follows strict health codes. Franklin turned to Reyes. Pull the kitchen security footage from the last hour. I want to see everything. Reyes hesitated, glancing at Cassandra. For a moment, loyalty and fear fought behind his eyes. Sir, I don't have clearance for that footage without manager approval. I'm the chairman of this company, Franklin said quietly. I think that counts as approval. Cassandra stepped forward fast, blocking Reyes's path toward the security office. The system is being upgraded tonight. Footage access is down. It was a small lie, delivered too quickly, wrapped around a shaking voice. Franklin studied her for a long moment. Somewhere behind her polished exterior, panic was rising like water behind a cracking dam. Interesting, he said, because your own kitchen team installed those cameras 8 months ago. I remember approving the budget myself. $41,600. Cassandra's mouth opened, then closed again. She had trusted those cameras completely. She had used them to watch her own staff, to catch anyone stealing so much as a bread roll. She had never once imagined they might be watching her. Franklin's phone buzzed again. Another message from his CFO. This time, an attachment. A spreadsheet titled Horizon Lounge Waste Discrepancy. 3 months of numbers laid out in careful red rows. He did not open it in front of her. He simply slid the phone back into his pocket and looked at Cassandra with quiet patience. Somewhere behind her calm mask, a plan was already forming. Franklin could see it in the tiny shift of her eyes toward the exit. "We'll find out together," he said. Right now, what Cassandra did next would decide whether tonight ended in confession or in something far worse. For the first time all night, Cassandra Montgomery had nothing clever left to say. But her silence would not last long. A new sound was already approaching, sharp footsteps that meant this night was far from over. At 6:38 p.m., footsteps echoed sharp against the marble as two new figures crossed the lounge. They wore navy jackets with gold badges. Airport security, not the lounge's private guards. Cassandra's posture straightened instantly. Some color returned to her cheeks. "Officers, thank you for coming so quickly," she said, voice suddenly warm again. "This man is impersonating a corporate executive and refusing to leave the premises." The lead officer, a tall woman named Patricia Cole, looked between Cassandra and Franklin. "Ma'am, we got a call about a disturbance and a possible fraud situation." "That's exactly right," Cassandra said. "He's holding a fake ID and scaring other guests." Franklin stayed still, holding Micah close. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He simply waited. Officer Cole turned to him. "Sir, I need to see some identification." Franklin handed over his driver's license and the black executive card without a word. Cole studied both carefully, then tapped the card against her own handheld scanner, a standard tool used at every terminal checkpoint in the airport. The scanner beeped once. A photo appeared on her small screen, matching Franklin's face exactly. Below it, the same words from before: Chairman, Etheria Airlines Group. Cole's eyebrows rose slightly. She looked at Cassandra. "Ma'am, this card is registered and verified through corporate systems. It's not fake." "That's impossible," Cassandra said, her voice climbing higher. "He looks like—" She stopped herself half a second too late. The words hung in the air, unfinished but perfectly clear to everyone listening. Officer Cole's expression hardened. "He looks like what, exactly?" Cassandra said nothing. Her hands twisted together in front of her. Nearby, the young waiter, who had frozen earlier, finally set down his tray. He stepped forward, voice shaking slightly. "Officer, I want to say something. I worked here for 2 years. She told me last week to reuse the shrimp trays, if nobody complained. I have texts." Cassandra spun toward him. "Marcus, don't you dare." But Marcus kept talking, faster now, like a dam finally breaking after months of silence. "She schemes the food budget every month, buys cheap product, logs it as premium, pockets the difference." His hand shook, but his voice grew steadier with every word. "I wanted to say something in March. She told me nobody would believe a part-time kitchen worker over a manager." Another employee near the coffee station stepped closer, nodding slowly. She did not speak yet, but her eyes said she had a story too. The room seemed to lean forward, waiting to see who else might finally speak. The lounge had gone completely silent except for the soft hum of the refrigeration units nearby. A ceiling vent clicked once as it cycled on, the only sound loud enough to notice. Everyone stood frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. At 6:45 p.m., Cassandra's carefully built world began collapsing in real time. "He's lying," she said, pointing at Marcus. "He got written up last month. This is revenge." Marcus pulled out his phone with trembling hands. "I have messages. I saved everything just in case." He held the screen toward Officer Cole. Rows of text messages filled the display, time-stamped stretching back weeks. Instructions to reuse spoiled trays. Threats about hours getting cut if anyone complained. Franklin watched quietly, Micah's small hand now resting in his own. Gerald Dalton, the man who had lied about being scared for his children, suddenly found something fascinating in his phone screen. He would not meet anyone's eyes. "Mr. Dalton," Franklin said calmly, "did you actually see a disturbance tonight?" Dalton's face reddened. "I." Cassandra comps my membership. She just asked me to back her up. The confession landed soft, but heavy, another brick pulled from a crumbling wall. Gerald Dalton set his champagne glass down slowly, his face pale under the gold lights. He looked at his own reflection in the dark window glass, as if checking whether he recognized the man staring back. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, mostly to himself. "I just didn't want any trouble." Nobody answered him. The silence said enough. Officer Cole pulled out a notepad, jotting details fast. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us for questioning. This now involves fraud, false witness statements, and possible health code violations." "You can't do this," Cassandra said, backing toward the kitchen door. "Do you know who I am? I run premium accounts for half the executives in this airport." "I know exactly who you are," Franklin said quietly. "You're the person who decided a tired father and his sleeping son didn't deserve basic dignity." His voice never rose. It didn't need to. Cassandra's eyes filled suddenly, angry tears she refused to let fall. "I built this lounge's reputation from nothing. 5 years of my life." "You built it on spoiled shrimp and stolen budgets," Franklin said. "That's not a reputation. That's a countdown clock." Micah tugged his father's sleeve gently. "Daddy, is the scary lady going to jail?" Franklin knelt down slightly, keeping his voice soft for his son. "She has to answer some hard questions, buddy. That's all we know right now." Behind them, Officer Cole guided Cassandra toward the exit, her heels no longer clicking with confidence. They dragged slightly across the marble now, uneven and slow. The golden lights of the lounge suddenly felt harsh instead of warm, exposing every crack in the room's polished surface. At 6:52 p.m., the manager's office door stood wide open for the first time in months. Franklin walked inside with 2 corporate investigators who had arrived within 20 minutes of his call. Micah stayed close by his side, notebook clutched tight in one hand. Filing cabinets held years of falsified inventory sheets. A locked drawer, pried open carefully, revealed a small ledger written in Cassandra's own handwriting. Numbers lined up neatly, each one a small theft disguised as a shipping error. 6 months of skimmed food budgets totaled $87,000 for $119. A second folder sat under the ledger, hidden beneath old menus. Inside were photos of spoiled shipments, time-stamped and dated, proof Cassandra had known for months. Someone had printed them quietly, maybe as insurance, maybe out of guilt. The office smelled faintly of stale coffee and old paper. A desk fan turned slowly in the corner, stirring nothing but silence. Franklin exhaled slowly, not in shock, but in quiet sadness. He remembered approving Cassandra's promotion 3 years earlier. She had been sharp then, ambitious, full of good ideas about guest experience. Somewhere along the way, ambition had curdled into something else entirely. One investigator held up a printed email chain. "Sir, this shows a pattern." She threatened 3 other employees who tried to report the food issue over the past year. Franklin nodded slowly. "Make sure their jobs are protected. All of them." Marcus appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "Mr. Reeves, sir, I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I was scared I'd lose my job." Franklin studied the young man for a moment. No judgment in his gaze, only understanding. "You spoke up when it mattered most," Franklin said. "That took real courage. Most people stay quiet forever." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Full food safety audit starting tonight. Every lounge, every branch, nationwide." Franklin's voice carried quiet authority. "Nobody eats spoiled food in a building with my name on it." He paused, looking around the small office one last time. "And every manager will learn that kindness is not optional here. It is the standard." Marcus nodded firmly, standing a little straighter than before. Micah looked up at his father with wide, proud eyes. "You're going to fix it, right, Daddy?" "We're going to fix it," Franklin said, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. Together, outside the office, word had already begun spreading through the terminal. Staff members whispered in tight clusters. Passengers glanced up from their phones, sensing something significant had just happened. Nobody yet knew the full story, but everyone could feel the air in the building had shifted. The lounge that once symbolized untouchable luxury now sat exposed, its polished surface cracked wide open for anyone willing to look closely. At 9:14 p.m., 3 hours later, corporate security finished sealing the last evidence box. Cassandra Montgomery sat in a small interview room near the airport police station, her blazer wrinkled, her confidence gone completely. Officer Cole read the charges slowly. Fraud, health code violations, witness tampering, wage theft against 3 employees she had silenced with threats. Cassandra stared at the table, hands shaking now, without any performance behind it. "I just want to keep my job," she whispered. The lounge wasn't hitting targets. "I panicked." "Panic doesn't explain $87,000, Cole said flatly. Across town, Franklin sat in his car outside the airport, Micah finally asleep again in his booster seat. The worn blue notebook rested against the boy's chest, rising and falling with each slow breath. Franklin's phone buzzed one final time that night. A message from his head of human resources. Termination process for C. Montgomery, effective immediately. Full food safety review launching company-wide tomorrow morning. 3 employees reinstated, with back pay and formal apologies. Franklin read the message twice, then set the phone down. He thought about the sour smell that had started everything, rising quietly under bright gold lights, while nobody paid attention. He thought about how easily cruelty hid behind a pressed uniform and a confident smile. Mostly, he thought about his son's small voice asking why a stranger was pushing them toward a corner. That question would stay with him longer than any spreadsheet ever could. 6 weeks later, Etheria Horizon Lounge reopened under new management. Marcus stood behind the front podium now, wearing a fresh black vest and a small silver name badge that read Lounge Supervisor. His hands no longer shook when guests approached. The cold-cut table held fresh meat, replaced every 90 minutes under a new automated tracking system. Every tray carried a small printed timestamp, visible to any guest who wanted to check. A small sign near the buffet read, "Every item here is fresh, tracked, and verified. Ask any staff member for details." Franklin had approved the wording himself, word by word. The 3 employees Cassandra once threatened now worked open shifts, their names printed proudly on a new staff board near the entrance. Franklin walked in wearing the same faded jeans as before. Micah walked beside him, no longer asleep, holding his father's hand tightly. No manager rushed over to push them anywhere. A young hostess smiled warmly. "Welcome back, Mr. Reeves. Table for 2 by the window." "That sounds perfect," Franklin said. As they settled into their seats, Micah pulled out his blue notebook and set it carefully on the table between them. "Daddy, can I write about tonight? For Mom's book?" Franklin smiled, a real smile, warm and unhurried. "She'd love that, buddy." Micah opened the worn cover and began writing in careful, uneven letters. Words about a scary lady, a magic black card, and a lounge that finally smelled like fresh flowers instead of spoiled meat. A waiter passed by with a fresh tray of fruit, offering a slice of orange to Micah. The boy took it with a shy smile, juice dripping onto his small fingers. Nearby, an elderly couple sat quietly, with tea, laughing softly about a trip to visit grandchildren. Their voices carried no fear, no tension, just the easy comfort of people who felt welcome. Outside the window, planes rose steadily into the evening sky, carrying people toward 1,000 different destinations. Inside the lounge, for the first time in months, the air simply smelled clean. Franklin watched his son write, feeling something settle quietly in his chest. Not triumph exactly, something steadier than that. The simple, quiet peace of knowing dignity had finally found its way back home.